So I'm going to go into the last session, which is hosted by me, your host for today. And I've called it your climate transition, the 10 commandments of making your climate transition. And it's a funny title, but that's the whole idea, that there are certain principles I personally believe are very important for anybody who is looking at getting into climate or sustainability work now. I recently made my own transition into the world of climate action, for the next 10 years. And that happened about 9 months ago. And I'm willing to make the bet that there's going to be a whole lot more people who do want to get involved in climate action, either as entrepreneurs, either as employees, policy makers, educators, etc. So with this event, what we've tried to do is stitch a long narrative. You've heard 11 TEDx talks from our mafiosos. You've gone through 5 interactive sessions across policy, climate entrepreneurship, waste, energy, not forgetting the 5th one. We've had a climate quiz. We've had 5 polls, 5 quizzes, and I think 5 TED videos, all designed to really take us from zero to some level of a foundation in real climate knowledge, right? And to not to really say that, okay, we're back to basics, we're going to ground zero, and we're going to learn from here so that we can really make a dent going forward. So in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to take you through some personal opinions on what I believe should be the 10 commandments for making your own climate transition, which is what this entire day has been designed around. Like I said, none of these opinions are of SusMafia, they're all mine. And the title is unserious, but it's actionable. So the first one, thou shalt acknowledge the science and embrace urgency. We can't really hide under a rock anymore. And I remember the TED countdown organizers very clearly starting off their initial session with, the time for awareness is over. It's time for action now. And I believe that's very, very true, that while awareness through great storytelling is still very important, we should all at least try and wrap our head around what the science is, acknowledge that as a base fact, and design that into our solution building. Number 2, thou shalt map and leverage the built ecosystem. I think it's a fool's errand to try and recreate everything from scratch, particularly with climate, which is so overwhelming, with sustainability, which is so overwhelming. We don't necessarily know where to begin. But fortunately, there are some really, really good ecosystem builders out there. They have been at it. You just heard from Pratap, who's built Climate Collective. Similarly, there's Rain Matter Climate, India Climate Collaborative, Terra.do for education, WRI, Terry, what we are building as a baby foundation now, Climate Works for finance, and several others. There are really, really good organizations out there in the field. I think it's extremely helpful to map them out, know who's working where, and build the right stakeholders, because climate by its very DNA is a collaborative problem to solve. So getting your collaborators on board early, I think helps push the collective ball a lot further. Number 3, thou shalt for solutions build and reason from first principles. I think this is important for anything in life. Elon Musk is a big believer in building from first principles. So are many other great inventors. And I've chosen to include this over here because I think in climate work, assuming that we already know something and then building from there can be a big mistake. I think it's better to unlearn everything we know, go back to basics, go to day zero, go to base elements, and then build solutions, right? So rather than the replication model, an analogy model, reasoning by analogy, reasoning from first principles, I believe, should be a core concept that we all adopt for our own climate journeys. Number 4, paint and share your vision of a 10x cleaner, fairer, safer, and better future. Essentially the theme of Countdown and what we've been narrating today. So one of my favorite books, The Little Prince, has this amazing quote. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up the people to gather wood, divide the work and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. And I think that's a very powerful quote, particularly for the problem that we've all put our heads toward. That this problem is not going to be solved by delegation. This problem is not going to be solved by any taskmaster. It's going to be solved by Imagineers who show us what a cleaner, safer, better, and fairer future can look like, and then really build forward. Like Pratap said, build the future that we want, and then recruit the right stakeholders along those journeys, right? So get people inspired for action, for a cleaner, safer, better, fairer future, and build forward. Number 5, thou shalt build a personal board of advisors, a PBA. It's my acronym for it, for your climate journey. And I actually call it a PBCA now, Personal Board of Climate Advisors. And I just believe that's very important because nobody is an expert in climate or sustainability. It doesn't mean any one thing. So by the very nature of it, you need to have a personal board of advisors from various different fields. An educator, somebody who understands finance really well, somebody who's an ecosystem builder, somebody who's built a foundation or a private limited before you, somebody who can be your policy advisor. And I think having a personal board of advisors of 5 to 7 people, just like a company would have a board of directors, is so great. I actually started going down this route 2-3 months ago, and I've personally found it to be very, very valuable. Who you choose to include into your personal board of advisors is totally up to you. But pick your stakeholders really well. And I think it'll help you craft your own climate journey in a much more punchy way. Number 6, thou shalt curate amazingly great media. So I think we are flooded with horrible media. There's so much negativity on the planet, particularly because our media is possibly 95% skewed to negative event flow. But there's actually great creators out there. And we started tallying together, the great podcasters, the great filmmakers, the great bloggers around climate action and sustainability, and actually put a little list up on our site. Creators we follow. It wasn't for anybody else particularly, specifically. It was just our aggregation of powerful podcasters, powerful bloggers, and we made it a showcase page that anybody who's interested in getting, learning about climate or learning about climate entrepreneurs out there can get a head start with. And so on this page, I've only dropped a few of them. My climate journey is on my favorite. Mission Shunya's podcast host is a mafioso. Scroll.India does a fantastic series called Eco India. MIT Energy Gang, the MIT Energy Initiative. Today I Learned Climate, Down to Earth. There's so many more. I would highly, highly advise that anybody looking to get started in climate work and make their own climate transition, flood your day with just great content that already exists. And it's all focused on building a cleaner, fairer, better future. Number 7, thou shalt strive to be a creative collaborator. So this is a very personal one. I love collaboration. And one of our early inspirations in SusMafia as well was a beehive. We came up with a tool called a cross-pollinator to exchange value between our mafiosos. And that's a tool that we made into our website. Bees are great collaborators. And I think even for climate, it is a problem that nobody can solve by himself or herself, right? It's a wicked problem. And I've come to a very clear definition of what a creative collaborator is now, because these are the kind of people that I particularly get so excited to work with. So either creative collaborators can make time and have hunger, or bring resources to the table and have hunger. And if they can make time, bring resources to the table and have hunger, that's like catching lightning in a jar. Please reach out to me. We'll work on a lot of projects going forward. I'm personally on the hunt for a lot of creative collaborators, and I would say even for SusMafia, going forward for a lot of ambitious bets, it would be great to have creative collaborators. Number 8, thou shalt design strong business models. So I put out a little image the other day saying, the next $100 billion of value is going to be created through climate work. And it got a little bit of traction, and people don't necessarily believe that, like Pratap showed in his own slides. We don't really assume too much money goes into climate work today or clean tech today. But if this decade is about solving this giant wicked problem, value has to be created. And I think there's a big disconnect between value creation and philanthropic charity work. There's a big misconception in the market that if I'm doing it, I must not, necessarily be making money, and I must not necessarily be creating value for myself. And I think we need to kind of go back to the drawing board to really say that wealth creators are value creators. And how cool would it be if we can actually create cool climate solutions, sustainability solutions, while actually building wealth for society and for ourselves. So strong business models, not dependent on charity or not dependent on philanthropy, would be so amazing. Let the charity and philanthropies do their job and bring their bit to the ecosystem, but let's focus on designing strong business models. Number 9, thou shalt target more meaningful metrics for impact. And I think this is another rewiring that a lot of entrepreneurs have done really well, getting the right metrics in place, what matters for their company. But I personally I don't think a lot of people have done that. We still chase, head counts as a metric. We still chase when did we get our first funding round. And my contrarian bet is how cool would it be if we could actually collectively target, carbon mitigation, water efficiency and water reduction, waste management, along with livelihood creation. So essentially the environmental impact and a socioeconomic impact, and display those to our investors, display those to our consumers, display those to our employees, right? And really rewire society's brain around what should be valued. If we want to fight climate change, we have to display environmental metrics. We have to display socioeconomic metrics. So I think if you're starting from scratch, these are important metrics. These are powerful metrics to design for. And then the last one, number 10, if all else fails, thou shalt get creative through panic. So one of my favorite comics growing up has been Calvin and Hobbes. And I love it even as a young adult. So there's a short little strip where Hobbes says, do you have an idea for your story yet? Calvin says, no, you can't just turn on creativity like a faucet. You have to be in the right mood. Hobbes says, what mood would that be? Calvin says, last minute panic. And this really ties back to the painting that I started with in my own video at the beginning of today's session, which was Scream. This is a collective state that we should be in right now, looking at our climate crisis. And this is possibly where a lot of great solutions will also come from, right? Innovation through necessity. So that's about it from me. Thank you for being with us at this TEDxSusMafia event. We've been at it since 11 in the morning, long day. We've packed in a lot. I can't believe some of you have actually been with us since 11 in the morning. We've had 420 people come through and go at any given time today. And we've maintained an average of about 60 to 110 people through the day. That's just amazing. On a Sunday, if people are interested in sustainability and climate work, there's a lot of hope and optimism for the future.